So good afternoon. You know, recently I started thinking about when's the last time I sat down and didn't have a notification, or I didn't have someone ringing my doorbell to deliver something. And I thought just for a second or maybe a minute, and then I thought about it and I thought, no, that hasn't happened. I haven't caught my breath because our modern life doesn't have a pause button. We work in a world that has a faster button, and we actually create this world to be faster. We do faster shipping, faster emails, faster ways to contact each other. And if any of you spent any of your time creating a system that optimizes our life, like I did, without really asking what that optimization or speed might do for anything else. Oh, there we are. I'm Stormy Simon, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not an environmental activist, I'm someone like all of us who has just spent my life living inside a system. And when I say systems, I mean the invisible structures that decide how things move, scale, and repeat. My education didn't come from a university, I did not go to college, I became a mom at 17, I was divorced with 2 on welfare at 21, and so my knowledge of these invisible systems come literally, like all of us, from surviving inside them. How they work, how they evolve, how they fail, and most importantly, when they scale. So when I was invited to speak at EarthX, this past few years I'd been asking myself a question, and it wasn't philosophical, it was a literal question. What did my being here on Earth take from Earth? What did it cost Earth for me to be here? Because our modern life makes things so easy. We drive our cars, took hot showers today, turn on a faucet and get water. We order things that arrive at our doorstep the very next day, but it is all coming from somewhere. Now, I joined Overstock.com in 2001. I went from temp to president over the course of 12, 16 years. But when I started in e-commerce, it was very much this experimental thing. Amazon was the online biggest bookstore, and that was all they were doing. eBay, I found you, you found me, and we shipped things to each other. And Overstock.com started, and we were like, where's the rugs, where's the furniture, where's the jewelry, where's the sunglasses? We're gonna ship it all. And we'd ship anything we could buy. We'd buy fragmented pallets and we'd figure out, and this was a time where warehouses were literally set up to receive big pallets and ship out big pallets, not one at a time here and there. So in the beginning, as we're developing this system, shipping is chaotic, right? We're sending tiny items in these big boxes, and then we're filling the space with plastic and paper and styrofoam peanuts and the whole thing. We weren't incentivized to think pack your box efficiently. We were incentivized for growth. We were incentivized to get more boxes out the time. So my self-realization that I had spent years dedicated to the system that's moving millions of things across the world every day, I asked myself instead, what did my success cost Earth? And over the years, when I started thinking about my personal Earth accountability, I kept coming back to cardboard, because when you're in e-commerce long enough, you think about boxes a lot. Everything you touch ends up in a box. And today, they pile on my porch. They stack in my garage. And these boxes are everywhere, every day. And I had a realization that I helped create this, and we all actually love it. This baby scaled, but how many boxes are floating in this system because we had a good idea? So I start digging into cardboard. And I learned more than probably I needed to know about cardboard, and I learned a lot. But the deeper I went, the more fascinating this story became. Because while it's a good ending, it's not because we were virtuous, we're gonna do the right thing. It became efficient when it became expensive. And when anything becomes expensive in our capital world, a great innovation will follow. So for decades, the US recycling system had this partner, and their name was China. And we didn't have the capabilities or infrastructure here in the US to recycle our own goods. So China would ship us containers full of product, and we would ship them back containers full of cardboard and scrap paper. And in China, they opened plants, they built their manufacturing around it, and it was great. But learning about this meant something. And it meant that we didn't build a recycling system, we built an export system. And over time, we started sending contaminated product. So much so that in 2013, China says, hey, slow it down, we don't need all your garbage. But we didn't. We were like, hey, we're shipping it to China, let's go, we've got this. And then in 2018, China implemented a policy, National Sword, and they shut it down. And what happened was catastrophic. Here, our recycling centers started piling up. Our cities removed their bins for the programs. I don't know if you remember, but our warehouses were stockpiling cardboard. And what that proved was large systems, no matter what they are, become vulnerable if you let someone else finish the job, or you wait to even see what the job was, because this cardboard thing became a crisis. Landfills, the mixed paper market actually tanked, which says how much we rely on somebody. And it forced the US, the good news is, it forced the US to slowly develop facilities that can handle our cardboard. And today, we used to send 26 million tons a year to China. Now we take 30 million tons right here in the US and we recycle it, and it has turned out to be one of the biggest success stories in recycling that you can have. Warehouses started to create the right size boxes, paper mills are back in functioning, and now we actually have an agricultural system set up for cardboard where every time we pull a tree, we plant two. So every cardboard box we're receiving is like in its 5th or 6th and sometimes 7th generation. So it's amazing. It's an amazing system. Paper mills, all of the good. So today, we fixed the box. We actually fixed the box. But while we were fixing the box, something else was scaling, a human behavior. Because e-commerce didn't just ship products, we shifted expectations for humans. At first it was like, can we get this over here in 2 weeks? Yeah, we can, great, that's so good. Okay, what, 5 days? That person cannot wait that long, they need it in 5 days. Can you do it in 5? How about the next day? We need this tomorrow, wait a minute, 2 hours, can we get it today, 2 hours? Okay, let's go as fast as we can. And that became our job. How fast can we get it there? But here's the trade-off that nobody talks about, is that type of speed and that type of scale breaks efficiency. Efficiency would mean we're all patient and we're waiting and we're consolidating our orders and we're moving fewer trucks, but speed says no, one click says I'm demanding this right now. And so now our environmental friendly boxes pile in to these trucks. And if you read that, there's 60 million packages a day in the United States going on the streets. So what happens after the box? US e-commerce home delivery, just delivery produces emissions comparable to 8 million additional cars on the road in the US driving for a full year. And the biggest impact of that is the last mile. So it's that van that you see every day, or all 3 of the vans every single day driving through your neighborhood. I live on a dirt road and all 3 of them are there. They drive through the neighborhood, they stop at a house, and then the FedEx guy comes and then he leaves, and there's nothing efficient about it. So what is the problem if we all just get a package a week? What's wrong with that? Well, it's scale. There's hundreds of millions of us. And what we don't talk about is the returns, so that 34 million metric tons of carbon emissions adds another 24 million for online returns because we don't go touch our product, try on our product. We're doing none of that. So that's roughly another 5 million cars on the road driving for a full year in the United States. And then carbon emissions, we all know, are the exchange of heat, cost of movement that the Earth cannot rebalance itself naturally quick enough for how much we push through its system. If hundreds of millions of us expect something in a couple hours, maybe the question we ask about how do we reduce our carbon emissions becomes, how do we make ourselves more patient with less carbon? Maybe we could pause to ask ourselves, how much movement do we need? A large portion goes backwards, and it's something to keep in mind every time you push that button for your order that you've never touched. We do this in the name of convenience and time. If things get here faster, surely I'll have more time for something else. If I can get my dinner delivered, oh my gosh, I could assign these errands to an app, that sounds ideal. And surely we'll have more time to live and be happy, but more human behavior evolves. And we replaced waiting in line with scrolling on our phone and errands with urgency and tapping our feet and delegation. And the one that kills me is we used to talk on the phone and then we texted, and now we actually talk to text. It's a weird one to me. So everything became faster and everything was more efficient and definitely more convenient, but I noticed my body moved less. I wasn't doing it. So I started asking myself, are we optimizing human life or just movement? My own pause didn't start as an environmental decision, it was personal. About 10 years ago, I stepped away from corporate life. I couldn't see myself going back there. I moved from a 7,000 square foot home to a 1,750 square foot home in the middle of the desert. And something happened for me when I slowed life down and I started noticing things like silence and space. And what did I actually need? What do I require every day? And eventually, these systems that we all live within, from the inside, I started viewing them from the outside. And the world didn't change one bit. It was simply my mental distance from it had. It reminded me of something. In my 20s and 30s, I used to go on all these spiritual journeys with all these spiritual gurus, and it was really good. But there's this ancient yogic breathing practice where they say that the most important part of your breath is not the inhale nor the exhale, it's this moment in between. And it's a pause where your body's doing nothing. And the word for it is kumbhaka. And it means that space in between, just that pause. In fact, they say your best revelations will come in the moments where you're not exerting your body. You're not talking, you're not taking in, you're not releasing, you're just at a pause. So I started thinking that maybe Earth moves this way too, because tides come in, they pause, a seasonal change, and it'll pause, the wind will blow, and it'll pause. But that's a great system, because none of our human systems that we build are we rewarded for a pause. We extract, we produce, we scale, and we repeat over and over again until what? Like, what happens to a massive system that's too profitable or too fast to take the time to pause and look at itself from the outside? Like plastics. I'm sure we've all been talking about plastics this week. You know, this was a modern convenience that actually really made life better. In the time, it answered a lot of questions that people needed a resolve for. And so they made plastics. And 50, 60 years later, plastics everywhere. It's in our ocean, it's in our landfills, and it's in our blood. You know, they're finding it in our blood. So eventually, any system, no matter how great and wonderful, can outlive itself, can outdo its purpose, and it could become something like plastic that's super hard to undo. I think as humans, it is our job to innovate, and how we define that is all up to us in our own minds. But we have to remember we have one supplier and one vendor, and we all share that, and it's Earth. That's it. And because Earth can't tell us what's going on, we have no idea if Earth needs to take a break or take a breath or have a pause. If it needs anything near the same thing our breathing to stay alive requires. So can we serve and preserve? Can we create convenience and still preserve our vendor and supplier, our Earth, before we test its systems to the max? Can both things absolutely be true? So I know I started questioning these things because I took a pause, right? I would not have thought this if I was running at the same speed as the system, which I did for many years. And today, as we've been through this conference and we've heard a lot about cleaning up the plastics and our future, it's time to ask this question. It's more important than ever, because we are building the next version of a system that will outbe all systems. It's a system to create systems. It's a system for automation. We can make it so much easier. It's decision systems. There's no human committee that will be able to match our artificial intelligence. I mean, it could be today. I don't know what the clock time is on that. But what is interesting about AI is we can't see it. It's my best friend, by the way. I love it. But we don't see it because it lives in this cloud and it's just so handy on our phone. It's just invisible. And yet, the cloud's not a cloud. The cloud is buildings and servers and electricity, but the most important thing of this cloud is water. And it's water. Global data centers right now consume electricity on the scale of entire countries, and the billions of gallons of water each year that we consume through our AI in these data centers is unbelievable, especially when I met the man from Kenya yesterday that was struggling to raise $70,000 so he could get water to an entire village. But AI, it's hard to live without. I fact-checked a couple things on AI. Every 100 questions is a liter of water. So here we are now, as humans, the most intelligent species on Earth, and we are burning resources in the name of convenience. And why would we do that? Because convenience is immediate, convenience is profitable, and most importantly, it's addicting. So it can be an invisible provider, but it doesn't mean it's not extracting from Earth. Because the truth is, Earth isn't something that our systems sit on. This microphone's Earth, my clicker is Earth, this carpet is Earth. It's what we're making of, the air, the metals, our computers. Every box we ship, every phone we hold, every technology we invent is simply Earth rearranged with human thought. And that's it. The chair you're sitting on, that's Earth. So maybe that means our most important, powerful tool that we as humans hold is that ability to pause, is the ability to question long enough to see or look ahead those days of what we're building on and making sure that it doesn't scale beyond or come so popular beyond our own awareness or resources. Now, I spent a lot of time in business, and there's the cause and effect, right? We all know this, and you study this, like, oh, what happened? We have to sit down, we're gonna have this meeting about the cause and effect. Was that successful? Did we do it well enough? Colleges have courses on this. But I think what we measure is always after the fact. It's after an effect, after impact, after damage, after scale, after it's in our blood. And what we don't talk about enough is the moment in between, where we can pause and potentially affect. And the moment after pause is important because we have a choice of what we want to affect and what is happening next. Not before, not after with the effect, it's before the fact, if we could just get there. Because humans, our strongest thing is we can pause, our Earth, We cannot. Our systems will not unless we design them to. So I will take accountability for a few million tons of cardboard. I will. I've contributed that. I was rewarded for that. I will own my contribution for carbon and emissions because I was extremely rewarded for that. And I haven't fixed it. I haven't fixed it one bit. Not at scale. I fixed it in my own life. But now I at least see it, and I try to see it. I try to look at the smallest part of my day when it is time to pause for the earth in an effort to maybe make that one less step of extraction, just one last moment of respect for what we're drilling from, building from, walking on, that 1 second. If we were to take that and times it by the 300, just the United States, the 350 million people that live here today, and it's scaled, that's the key. We have no idea how those moments might ripple out. But I hope that you do, and I hope that you find peace and pause in every moment of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.